honestly every single team participating in this Grand's lobby, MDF, is the fact that these combat caches, I think with these new surge changes having been implemented, probably expect more players to try and get aggressive with those caches. I know oftentimes you won't necessarily see teams too head-on ready to aggress, but it's not just the material having that max metal, but just having the opportunity, generating the opportunity to get some surge tags online, such as what Muzz and Paper are lying in wait by the bush, Neko balls, just the wrong neighborhood, man, and that's part of the play that's involved with the Grand's weekend. Muzz, Paper, just, again, creating their own opportunity.
That is right. This is game one of the FNCS Grand Finals. If you're just tuning in, don't miss a beat here. Things are going to start getting pretty intense now as we're approaching the new Storm Surge thresholds. We talked about that 70 threshold being the place to be, the marker to have to fight towards. And if things don't start to turn up now, it's only going to become more and more of a issue for the lobby. But we've seen plenty of action here for an FNCS Grand Finals game number one, which continues to be set as far as pacing is concerned for an NA server. You can see there the new thresholds updated.
And yeah, based off that fourth zone, 74 remaining players, we're due to see at least a couple of players maybe making some plays out of desperation as they try to get those damage thresholds above what they need. Skittles still trying to remain proactive as well. It'd be difficult though to acquire tags with just a standard Ranger pistol from a distance.
Take a look at the push right here. Golden and Ozone thought they had the coast clear, and all of a sudden Zooks and company land right up here on the Rift Island. They won't be able to secure the cache. However, they will get all the brick and material down on the bottom edge. For Golden and Company, this is the better spot to be, and I'm actually surprised we don't see Clix and Epic Whale up here. We've seen them throughout all of the semifinals weekends play for this Rift Island zone, and they generally have landed just to the north. You think they have rotated south by now after taking out Dan Redux, so positioning might be looking a little wary for them as we start edging into the later rounds of this game. Last check, they were reading Ritual, they were at pretty much their general draw.
Why am I streaming so early?
So we know the zone's
because
likely be pulling
this is when I wake up.
Or Eastern. We'll see what the timer updates. For now, Acorn and Cold are looking a bit desperate here, Taco. Very, very low material even after the 50-50 split, so you have to assume that both of these players are less than half their material cap count. They will have to battle here shortly.
For sure, but they can at least pick a more calculated moment in comparison to some of the other teams that might be surrounding them, given that their damage threshold is several hundred above. Acorn likely on the lookout, currently trying to scout, see if there is a possible third-party opportunity where they can look for that chance to secure some eliminations, build their damage even higher, but most importantly of all,
why
get
not
those materials, because they are most definitely going
why
to
not
need them throughout the course of these rotates, especially coming from that south side edge of the zone where a lot of the congestion is going to be building up anyway.
Trashy and Skittles continue to maintain this high ground spot. We already know that Skittles is having a very hard time with that tactical pistol, finding tags at range, so this is really all up to Trashy here to get this pressure going, to get these tags landed. Otherwise, they will start to fall behind very, very quickly. That's just one of the risks you take, prioritizing a more close range battle or weaponry. Meanwhile, Clix finds an elimination in the feed there, so Clix and Epic Whale continuing to turn on the gas pedal even under the pressure of what will be, of course, the Storm Surge to come here later. But for now, look, the pacing of the game moving faster than the warnings, showing that we really do have a very active NA server right now. They're not playing any games. They're not taking any chances. You have to respect an aggressive game one coming out of the lobby. Just tells us that we have confident players in here.
Confidence, certainly something that Peterbot has more than an ample amount of, but Peterbot, Pollo actually gonna make their approach from inside of this little ravine. And now Peterbot still trying to keep an eye out for some of these other teams. Knows that they're trying to get slightly further ahead into zone, but Peterbot's got to be careful here. He's got one right in front of him. G-Money trying to look for a regroup opportunity. As Peterbot will find a chance to get that small shield potion off. A little bit of Flowberry Fizz as well out of Poyo. Now it'll be Poyo. Peterbot following the rotation. Encrypted and Ducky just ahead. Same for Diego plays G-Money, but it's going to be Diego who gets the bulk of the damage there out of Peterbot.
And look at the key right here. They jump on G-Money right away. They don't want to give this up by any means. And Peterbot is the exception, not the rule. When you push into a team, you have to be very much worried that everything can end. Normally, Peterbot will be able to slip out of this type of situation, but you have to assume the pressure of the server is looming on all of these competitors right now, and it just doesn't go his way this time around. And now Diego is left to pick up the pieces here. G-Money at 4 eliminations, by the way. They get finished here very early to the hands of Ducky and Encrypted. Keep in mind, a great day 1 performance is important, but day 2 is even more important as the points are going to be worth even more. 1.5 times as much, in fact.
That's such a tragic situation, though, for G-Money and Diego. They were more than set on their surge damage. Peterbot and Poyo just taking such an aggressive jump into their box like that, and right as the 2-tick zone is approaching and both teams caught out of it, just can't imagine that it was ever going to be that beneficial for Peterbot and Poyo either, but at the very least...
Paper took down Kanata. Paper just took down Kanata right there. We haven't seen Aegis fall, but Taco, that's looking pretty tight for some of the favorites.
At least it's game 1, if anything. That's something that always to keep in the back of your mind. Even if you don't get the best start to the day, if you're at least able to close things out in match number 6 with a solid finish, you still feel pretty good about your odds heading into day 2 typically, because consistency will be the key for these teams here today. There's a lot of teams dogpiling each other here at the Lavish Lair Garden. Trashy just trying to keep it moving, wants to break into that edge of zone, get some positional favoritism before the rest of the lobby has a chance to catch up. Trashy knows that if this zone continues to pull towards that north side, does not want to get caught in that south end congestion. But it's hard to look back and find those tag opportunities to maintain above that damage threshold too.
What's crazy about what we're watching, especially like, forget the gameplay on the screen, I'm just looking at the way the map, the bottom right, the way all of the players are moving, they are just riding their way edge to edge. This is really showing you that there's an anomaly occurring here on the FNCS Grand Finals. This is how important it is to the players that they just want to get to the safety of the zone, base down, and if they have to fight, so be it. They'll take those fights. For Reet and Ritual, they have much more knowledge than others. They know where the next zone's going, right? So they're playing a different level of game strategically. However, they need to fight still. They need the surge here. This is a very important battle, and they find a couple tags, but they're hurt in the process.
It will be just enough, though.
You have a knock.
Given that Dalty, though, could be very difficult to actually get to. Most importantly is the fact that at least for right now, Reet will get a little bit of space here. Ritual just continuing to target forward. Skater again finding his way, just squeezing out of the box that Reet and Ritual were looking to knock on the door of. But again, Reet and Ritual now still feeling the pressure, because the next zone kickoff, it means that you just no room to ever really feel comfortable. So many of these teams just feeling the pressure now from that surge threshold.
Well, here it is. Jumping in with Sphinx and Pump. Pump is down. Sphinx is left to play this out by himself, so he finds himself a nice little elimination to keep him in the game. Just barely holding on by a thread there. However, for Reet and Ritual, things are still looking tough. Although they go back and forth here with their surge damage, other teams have an eye on top of them. 20 seconds until the damage does start to turn completely online. And if they don't find tags now, I mean, it might just be impossible to do so later. But you never know, given the nature of the lobby, players are going to start to fall here. They could potentially survive a little bit longer. I'm more curious to see as to why Reet and crew haven't actually just healed just yet with the Flowberry Fizz. If they wait any longer, it's going to be pretty tough.
Seems as though Reet and Ritual are really just banking on the fact that they wanted to maintain that Flowberry Fizz for when their shields inevitably get cracked. They can use this Flowberry Fizz to try and regen a little bit of shield, try and keep their white HP from going down too low. All they need is 4 more players to go down. But at the same time, no one is willing to budge from their box. If you're safe, if you're not below that damage threshold, there's no reason to peek right now. Likely teams also able to hear the shield cracks. Ritual now forced to expend the medkits as well. Heal off. Not even a thought process for Ritual currently. They are just begging for anybody to peek so they can look for an opportunity here to get some damage going.
Incredible to think they only need a tag. They actually find it right there. And it is so close. They are just barely holding on. Now, let's not count them safe just yet, as of course 3 more players still have to fall, and there's going to be the next threshold that they're going to have to worry about there. But what an intense moment, and they were virtually gifted, again, gifted all the information from the tower early on. Bugha also having a very difficult game here. Take a look at this. Aviv with a singular elimination taken out. Ritual under pressure now from the rifle of Bugha. He's only 39 above. Make that 100 now, but also just very much on that very thin lining here, trying to hold on to this tournament run here.
Granted, it is still Bugha, though. And definitely a player that has more than earned his respect here in this Grand Finals lobby, but won't be able to hang on for much longer. Gets picked off as he desperately tries to make a play on the low ground for some damage. That's going to be the end of his lobby 1 run, but Bila up top here with Quanti. Now going to look to try to max pull zone here. So Bila just want to get straight towards the next zone, but immediately you look to use that grapple blade towards frontside zone. You're going to get ate up in the process here. Bila, Quanti just barely managing to get a little bit of a chance, get some resustain going. Clix and Epic on the other note, though, inside the Migron layers, having a chance now to peek up that height, trying to see if they can get a chop going as well. You know this is a team that loves going for a height overtake as well.
I was just going to say, I'm so happy we tuned in when we did, because you saw that is literally what they do around this time. They start to eye up high ground. They've done it every single weekend so far, but never against the likes of Cold and Acorn, because Cold and Acorn have found it tremendously difficult to make it to endgame, let alone be in a high ground position. Meanwhile, Yamzo and Rise are just continuing to cook here, but they are below the surge and they're fighting ever so for it. And just because you have a grapple hook, you can see it is not free by any means to find yourself safe into the next zone. Pressure is coming from every single angle as the surge continues to force players to make decisions they wouldn't otherwise make. Yamzo, Rise traps someone in the box, but not quick enough to get the elimination, and it's Bila who's on the run right now with DK on the other side of the wall and Quanti in the mix. And look at this, Taco, they are just turning online, but high ground, a battle, Clix and Epic Whale going for it.
And it's just straight grapple up. That's the method from Epic and Clix. Epic, though, forced to fall back. Seems his damage a little bit too much to continue trying to hold height there for the time being. Duke threats more or less the same boat. Also try to look for a little bit of a height challenge here. Now Duke, of course, try and use his med kit, but using the med kit also means that he can't be moving directly behind threats. So this team wants to be careful, doesn't want to get too split here as the zone continues to pull across the course of Lavish Lair. And it's Acorn and Cole still managing to hold on to height.
Did an excellent job defending against Clix and Epic Whale. I'm actually surprised they managed to do that, considering they had 2 singular towers based out a very difficult way to hold the zone. But you know what? They each hold their own, and look at this. Clix continued to tear up here as he's at 5 eliminations, forced to the low ground. Epic Whale's down, no builds, has to rat his way into the edge here, and he has continued to go. He finds a solo in front of him. It's Cold. It might be Acorn as well. No, it's actually just Cold coming down, trying to single out Clix, and he is super hurt, sandwiched between 2 players, but Acorn is there to back him up, and down goes Clix and Epic inside top 10 of the ultimate low ground. Trashy here with just 4 eliminations, trying to make the best here, but they've already done so much. And the sleeper duo of Muzz and Paper securing high ground. This might be their game.
Muzz and Paper, though, drop in momentarily. Looks like they want to try and apply some pressure towards this bottom side. Rise and Yamzo, when these two are together, the low ground demons really tend to shine here. As now it's just a Minish as a solo directly above Rise and Yamzo. They've got ample mats to keep targeting forward. That's going to be a drop down momentarily from Paper and Muzz. They're trying to find these last few players standing in the lobby. but it's Rise, it's Yamzo. Still continuing to control the low ground. Acorn in the back of he's just trying to go for the heal off.
He's just going for placement points right now, but one thing is clear. Rise and Yamzo are closing in on 10 eliminations, and we've seen game 1 wins with 10 elims back to back to back, but Acorn is that wild factor as he snipes up the high ground here. Rise and Yamzo get taken out to the hands of Paper. Paper jumps down and goes for it all, and in the end, Muzz is the one who is still standing. It seems like Muzz and Paper did just enough to take that first game there.
And that's incredibly close, by the way. For a moment there, it looked as though there was going to be an upset opportunity. Yeah, but sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
We've seen a lot of trades, actually. It'd be not a surprise to me if that was a very much fair trade. It's still pretty close. Right, Yamzo and Rise with the 8 eliminations and that 3rd place placement right behind them.
Look how much of an impact these eliminations have. Yamzo and Rise in 2nd place.
Avid Taco, game 2 is here. And we wanted to talk about potential contested battles, potential fights that are happening. We already saw Kanata and Agers have an early game engagement. It seems like Cooper and Miro have a difficult time happening here up against Veneto or Sineto and Veer.
Sineto and Veer challenging the likes. Well, I say challenge, but that didn't look too problematic as far as Cooper is concerned. Just wins that initial 50-50 off spawn, got to the weapons first, and now at the Marigold, Cooper, Miro, more than happy to just take their time looting out the entirety of the yacht here. Same story can't be said though for Baka. No eyes on Pars. Have to assume that this has been a 1-for-1 trade so far. Aaron not going to look for the revive opportunity just yet. Wants to see if he can get this wraparound instead onto Baka. Take advantage of some of those chuck barrels. And now trying to close in onto Baka. But again, early enough, Baka can still make the recovery for Pars off a reboot van if he wins this initial engagement. Game number 1 did not go the way of Baka and Pars. Game number 2 though, Baka trying to get aggressive here. Now trying to force his way into Aaron's box, but Aaron just so wisely utilizing this building over by the Reclaim Villa to keep himself safe for the time being. But Baka again, just overhead. And he needs to win off this engagement, MDF. He wants to actually start out the match this time, playing through as a duo.
Yeah, but smartly and wisely backs off here to get a little bit more material. Aaron snipes up what gets, spawned out of his teammate's body as well, along with the card. And look at this, Baka with the ambush play up above here. A little sneaky, but he's completely out of mass. Has to edit his way down, and it's another great spot for him to be in here. All in all, there's a couple of ways that he could play this out, but we might be seeing the story flip to the other side of the shoe here now, as again, Cooper and Miro actually were one of the first teams eliminated last game. Baka and Pars as well. Can they turn this around? I mean, Baka has a difficult task in front of him, and if he's gonna stand around here, I mean, the risk is gonna continue to rise. But he's just trying to get material, but every time he swings his way out into the open, he doesn't feel
there's
safe.
so many people
He's
dying.
using it a lot sooner than he'd like. And Aaron now,
Like
recognizing that he has a
actual
chance to
players, too.
push in. He's found Baka again.
I guess
He
it's
goes
grand
for it.
finals, but
Hits the cone, and that's the difference with having just a little bit more material there.
The other problem too for Baka is he just doesn't have a shotgun. You've got Aaron with the Frenzy Auto. Aaron trying to close in. Baka still looking to put in work, but this Hyper SMG just failing in comparison. Still, Baka rolling out on top here. Revenge established for Pars. Now it's going to be all about that reboot card into the reboot ban opportunity. Agers and Kanata, though, might find the run ending here shortly as Agers does go down to the likes of Hound and Aiden. Another team successful with our initial off spawn. And these are some massive battles that are brewing here, because we had our hunches in game number 1 about Agers and Kanata being contested at their drop when they initially weren't expected to be. So
Yeah, but it looks
curious.
like it's looking like there's even more going on there, because not only did they already have eliminations, Hound came out of nowhere. That's a completely new team that has decided to rotate into that, and that's what happens adjustment
still don't
to
understand
adjustment,
why
right?
the
Game
ADS
to game. Players are going to recognize, oh, look, Aegis and Kanata land right here. It seems like they're contested. Maybe we should have rotated that way, right? And look, all of a sudden now game 2, things are looking pretty tough for Kanata and Aegis.
Chimp and Scissor, though. Things actually looking a little bit beneficial here. Chimp finding a massive blow there onto Piggle. And this is a huge swing against Jiven, because when you factor in the eliminations acquired by that duo, Jiven and Piggle, throughout the course of semis, Piggle had 19 of their total 22 team eliminations. So it's going to be quite the uphill journey for Jiven to recover this one.
Oh, last time we tuned in with Dan Redux, they were taken out early on by the hands of Epic Whale and Clicks. This time it's Xpawn and Mew who take the fight here. Day, his back is against the wall. Can he earn any points here for the second game? It's not looking too hot, as Xpawn has a huge HP lead at the moment. Day left to run here, scrambling for any scrap of resource, and Mew still has his down teammate there too, and this might be the mistake of the push here. He's given Day enough time to already start to regenerate some more shield, and Day does have a med kit here, but look at the piece up from Xpawn. It's looking great. The Day is absolutely ready here.
Xpawn has to be hyper aggressive though, unless he wants to try and find this last minute revive, but not going to be able to make it to Mew in time. So a true 1v1 due to take place here at the Rebels Roost, but Day actually finding a
Day and
decent
night.
little loot pickup. Have to imagine that was Redux's
Every time.
loot that Day was able to take advantage of. Crash pad out. What I was going to say, MDF, is that if Day and Xpawn take too long,
Day
keep
and
in
night.
mind, there's still that rotate coming out of Clicks and Epic Whale from Lavish Slayer. We know how often that duo loves to rotate towards Rebels Roost. So Xpawn and Day have got to figure it out. Who's going to be the duo that gets you in there? Because it won't be long before Clicks and Epic Whale try to sniff them out. It's Forecast Towers, all due to be claimed here. Ritual and Reet collecting their standard one, given that the Forecast Tower southeast of Reckless Railways is the only one with a 100% spawn-in rate.
You can see 2AM Zavi here just sitting back, too wary to go for
Where's Peterbot?
potential NPCs in the forecast. They're not possibly worth the risk. He weighs his options. Batman Booga and Rapid on the other side continue to be contested on their drop, and now have seemingly picked up an elimination, but they have more to worry about here, as not only is there a solo nearby, but there's a team lurking, looking down from up above. It's Bryce, it's Chubbs, who were also equally contested there, and it seems like, although they won their fight, Bryce tries to come here to the hillside to play for a pickup, and there's still too many players lurking about.
That's the issue. You've got the likes of Batman Booga and Rapid rotating to Hazy Hillside from their drop at Research Rock.
And actually, it's Yamzo and Rise who are looking in, ready to fight for the zone here.
Not too surprising, though, when you factor in Yamzo and Rise dropping over by Lil Villa. They definitely have access towards trying to find third party or even just damage opportunities. Rapid, though, gonna run straight into Yamzo's bush. It's Rapid forced into a handful of panic builds now, but does regain some control of the situation. Does still have his duo directly next to him. As Rise and Yamzo look to try and create some space, move off to a separate hill here by the Hazy Hillside. And that's gonna default Rapid and Batman Booga to actually go down the hill face. Make sure they get out of the line of sight there from Rise and Yamzo on their rotate.
Get an update with Clicks and Epic Whale here. I would love an update on Muzz and Paper potentially as well, as we see our elimination point leaders and our overall placement point leaders are all sitting up at the top. Take a look here. Speaking about that top 10, our 8th place Sovzi has been already dropped and taken out here. So things will shake up, and we have a long game still in front of us. Clicks here deciding what he wants to do. He's got Violet to the right. He makes the call out. Hey, Quanti's by himself. Let's go for it. And they immediately jump in.
Oh.
And looks Clicks wary of the teammate to come in as well. I'm sure he's hoping he would have hit those shots there. And the advantage they have is now gone. And this is going to really tell us a lot about how they're feeling on the day. I was going to say whether or not they finish this fight or back off is going to be so important to the play style that they're looking to execute on, and they're going to back out. So what we're getting from this, what we're downloading from this, is that they want to play for the long haul. You have to respect it. Here's that update we were looking for.
It's just too massive of a body of water, and with the other hillside being so open, Clicks, Epic, Quanti, and Bila probably just recognizing the fact that this is not a very fruitful engagement for either of us, because it's just so easy for another team to possibly third-party take advantage of, essentially wipe them both out. So I respect the desire there from Clicks and Epic to want to be a little bit more cautious, trying to maintain those top 10 placements throughout the course of today.
Oh, look at this. Acorn, 2 eliminations. However, they are pressured down as Cole gets taken out, and actually they have 4 as a duo. So this has been an incredibly hot start for them right now, and it's cost them so much. Acorn once again with no shield. There hasn't been a single time we've jumped in with him and seen them fully comfortable, fully situated. It's always been one thing or another, and this time it's Peterbot and Boyo who are giving them a run for their money. Peterbot and Boyo are one of the most, you know, turned up teams in the semifinals. They were just pushing through lobby after lobby, making it look so easy. And they're continuing that pace, that aggression here for game number 2 of the NA Grand Finals.
And poor Acorn as well. This is a true Rags versus Riches situation. You can see all the material, max mats there from Peterbot. Have to imagine that Poyo is essentially maxed out as well, full cap on those builds. Acorn gonna finally get an opportunity here now that Peterbot and Poyo have rotated out, but Acorn definitely having to keep in mind that there is at least one team close by. Still, at least he will be able to reap some of the benefits of these drawn out engagements, but sometimes too much action.
Yo, his
can
name used to
definitely
be Asian Jeff,
detrimental
now
there.
it's
And
Jeff fell
even though
off.
Acorn and Cold were able to find those 4 elims early on, if Acorn isn't able to recover Cold via reboot Van MDF, seriously have to question how that solo performance is going to go, because not having your duo this early on could definitely make for a challenging mid-game.
Yeah, nearly impossible, if you will. We saw how difficult things got last game for even the likes of Re and Ritual, just trying to find surge tags at some given point in the game. Jeff and Oliver OG, though, looking very healthy here in between this little low ground position, trying to stay low as far as their profile and presence is concerned. For Yamzo and Rise, they've made their way from the outskirts on into the new zone, and they find themselves completely situated, actually, with a healthy amount of material, ammunition, extra heals. I'm wondering if whether or not they need to fight, though, because of the fact they don't have eliminations here. That might be their biggest drawback. Oof. He's going to be upset about that, but you see the returning fire. No hesitation. And the sniper shots coming back here. But hey, Taco, look, we have activity everywhere. Even Clicks lighting up the feed. Let's take a look at that elimination.
Can't say it's too surprising. Clicks with the Mythic Frenzy just completely running down Freeze. Freeze and Sus falling to the likes of Epic and Clicks, though. That's definitely going to be a pretty big pickup as far as their surge damage threshold is concerned. But Ritual finding themselves in a bit of an engagement here, just underneath the Rift Island. The other thing to keep in mind, as Re will take this rift up, not necessarily to challenge on the island, but does seem as though Re and Ritual would like to look for an opportunity to maybe farm out some brick. Rift Island could definitely be great for that. Even if there are other teams contesting it, you can just look to try and trade damage, as long as you don't find yourself getting knocked or fully limbed in the process. Acorn and Cold, though. Acorn's rescue mission a success, as Cold is back up and running, but they are so far south of where the zone is at. Refarming materials, Monster, on top of making that rotation in the first place, where every other team is going to have priority positioning over you, quite the battle remains still for Acorn and Cold in this one.
And no grapple hook either, just worth mentioning. It's going to be a long while before they get to the safety. You can see that's actually them here, moving up from the flank of Duke. Little do they know, there's a lot of attention looking this way as teams are hunting for Duke, so they do have to be very careful here with how they enter into the zone. And I think they're picking up what we're putting down here as they're starting to edge their way around the outskirts. So for Duke, though, you have to assume things went terribly wrong here because he has quite the loadout. A loadout that should not be one to where you'll be missing a teammate here. So with the Reds being eliminated, he too is going to have to probably play into the zone right now to play for a pickup. He surely has the heals and the sustainability to go the distance.
Duke right now kind of just rummaging through the remains of what looked to have been a pretty intensive Oxfight battle. But again, just outside that edge of zone, you can see how many teams are already situated up on some of these hills now, facing around Ritzy Riviera. Cooper, Miro, rather impressive Skybase themselves, as Cooper will opt to go to the top of his, try and gauge out if there's any teams they can look to try and hold on the edge of where they're currently situated. But a lot of pressure as well on Cooper and Miro when you really boil it all down, MDF. I mean, coming off of that global championship win, you know that this team wants to replicate that sensation of being the champions.
This just works out perfectly for them right here, as Cooper was so wary of the bases up top. You could tell he was playing specifically for it. We just mentioned the fact that Acorn and Cold had to be wary of the fact that Duke was playing Storm, and it seems like they count him out first. Cold nearly gets taken out once again there. However, I'm sure they're going to be extremely happy about the material pickup here and the loadout now delivered for Cold. So that's going to effectively put them right back into this game here. And they're at 5 eliminations, so one can assume that even if they don't get a lot of placement points, this game is not a dud by any means. These elims are extremely, extremely important. Here goes the big rotate, though. Just going to put them right back into the mix of things.
Again, still so much ground to cover. Granted, crash pads with the Flow Grade Fizz will help mitigate some of those troubles, but got to make sure to land on them. Unfortunate there for Acorn. Cold does have a grapple, though, just off of Duke's body. As for the rest of the lobby, though, that's already managing to stay more in line with where these zones are pooling. Skittles, Trashy, forced to the low ground for the time being, but they definitely want to try and work their way up. Will find themselves a nice bush here to kind of poison for the time.
What a zone. This is going to pull through the body of water, and all these players up here that thought they were playing for dead side rotate, wrapping all the way around the outskirts, find themselves met with 3, 4, 5 other duos trying to, you know, simulate the same exact strategy. There are no free rotations in the FSCS Grand Finals lobby. That's why you have to truly appreciate teams that can execute well and do it without taking any casualties. G Money as well finds his own teammate down, and he's so wary. In fact, he doesn't even want to go for the pickup at this exact moment, right? He's waiting it out. He's making absolutely sure the coast is clear, and the zone continues to put the pressure on. So look at that. He won't even be able to save him.
Right now, G-Money throwing that med kit up, trying to keep some of the resources close to him. Can't carry everything as a solo, so toss forward what you need. That way you don't have to stay inside of that storm, eating some of the tick damage that goes along with it. I like this, though, from Clix and Epic. Crash pad. Gonna help them essentially just catapult themselves immediately into the edge of the next zone. And they're actually gonna take this moment, turn back now, see if there's any other teams they can look to hold. But Clix, he's wary of this duo that's up on the hill. It's gonna be Blake and Macwood, just west of where Clix and Epic are currently at. they're not content with their position. They want to go even further.
1,000 above.
Yeah, Clix is actually holding that sniper out there. He was trying to see if Blake or Macwood would get a little too
Nice.
anxious and over peak there as he noticed they were firing out to the left and right. One small mistake and you never know who's got their eyes on you, and someone like Clix who's been running sniper all season long is definitely due for a big tag on stream. For Quanti and Bilo, they're continuing the pacing here after a close call against Clix and Epic Whale, so this might be a full story coming around here as far as the engagements are concerned. But take a look at the rotate here. Free as day here on the beach as Quanti's getting himself completely situated. This is a huge way for him to get right back into the game. The first an update from the Twins here. Bugha and Aviv dressed for success right now as they're sitting dead center. Do they have the forecast tower is my question at this point.
Would not surprise me given their current positioning. It's rather bold to go into center of zone. So for Bugha and Aviv to want to set themselves up definitely would lead me to believe that they probably know a little bit more than what some of these other duos might be wary of. They got to make sure that they can keep that damage threshold well above. Poyo, Peterbot also waiting to see if anybody dares step to them. More than happy to try and get some tags of their own. Acorn and Cole, they finally found their way back to the thick of the action here and waste no times in taking out Oliver OG.
Not only that, they secure the loot. Most importantly, they get to pick up all of that loot there. Reed and Ritual was sitting right up above them, but I don't believe there was any resistance there as Reed actually gets knocked to the hands of Rise here. What happened? They were rotating. How do you get a knock in the middle of a rotation is a question to be answered for a later time. However, Ritual will get the pickup. Rise contemplating whether or not it's worth pushing into, and he's going to investigate, but no luck there. He's a little too late to the party. And Rise has to play this one out by himself right now. Now, with 25 duos remaining in the game here, he is just now getting to the point where placement points will start to add up. Yamzo and Rise did a lot of damage to get this far here, so they'll be comfortable for a second, but Cooper and Miro edging their way up underneath the bases of Reed and Ritual and Muzz and Paper next door. Keep your eyes on the field for that potential clash.
Muzz and Paper is the main one to keep an eye out for. They're on the same exact layer as Rise as well. So definitely a solid chance that they might even just run directly into him from going forward. And I think that's why we see Rise now opting to try and crank up, but Muzz, Paper, all too quick with it. They're going to go for the instantaneous chop. They've got their eyes set on height. They want to be the first ones to strike. They're not going to let Rise hold this high ground, especially not if they're able to account for the fact that he's a solo, if they've been able to keep tabs on that Elim feed. No way to really tell just yet, but as the zone continues to pool, Rise, he's at least got a little bit above the damage threshold, so as a solo, he's probably going to want to wait for all these teams to rotate first and then just try to sneak on by and try to hang out through the backside of the zone.
But look at the aggression. He knows that he needs a refresh here. He knows he has to make a big play. He jumps into the box, gets the finish, gets the material, and now he has an actual chance here. Not only that, with the clean escape, breaks out the side with the grapple hook. This is a player that is willing to fight for it and to put it all on the line.
he's
But
getting the lobby.
little too soon, too early with the rotate to the front side of zone, as positioning is of course key, and he finds the lobby looking right at him.
Wow.
What is this though? A huge find is gonna put him right back in the game for a second.
Somebody's got just like a little burrow hoisted up in the middle
doesn't
of
trust it.
nowhere.
He doesn't trust
Rise,
it.
he's definitely wary, but it doesn't matter. The loot has already been secured, and despite having been heavily punished for that maneuver where he tries to grapple to frontside low, no surprise that the entire lobby would look at Rise
Oh,
in
the
the
luckiest
process. Just
man
incredible
alive.
stuff that he didn't get knocked. Just like how Muzz fell shortly. Paper trying to keep things going, but he's not going to have a chance to revive Muzz. Simply too far in here. He's
Bruh.
going to have to leave his duo behind. Don't even think he had a chance to collect any of the materials left over from Muzz. Now Paper knows he's just got to get ahead. of where this zone
Why
is
didn't
going.
he drop?
He was just a couple moments away from being able to secure that loop, but he finds a new body instead. And there goes the material a little bit, but the material he needed nonetheless there. And Paper is right back into this game here. And we called it. We knew Miro and Cooper were eyeing them up. But look at high ground. Clips and Epic Whale once again going for a high ground retake here. This is the second game in a row now. So bold and accurately actually managed to take this high ground this time around. And it is theirs for the time being. But Clips doesn't have a lot
thought
of
he was
material,
hawking
so
him off the
he has
edge.
to turn and burn
Holy.
on the lobby. Although he has limited medium ammo, he has so much light ammo to work with on the low ground. Cold and Acorn from the depths coming back into the game here against all odds now are at 6 eliminations front side of low ground zone. Arguably some of the pioneers of this type of play style in motion in endgame right now.
Aviv and Bugha, though, looking to give the low ground a little bit of a challenge here. Aviv, Bugha, likely also going to opt for a high ground take if their chance arises. But inside the depths of the congestion, inside of some of these lower layers, Clicks, Epic, they'll be picked off. As Ritual now look to try and overtake front side low. Cooper and Miro directly next to them is also tarping through front side low. Peterbot and Pollo, though, not trying to let anybody have fun underneath them. They've got so much suppressive fire going into these low ground builds.
You're dead.
Worth noting, Paper is still alive as well in the zone. He makes it well into the top 10 now for another game. Absolutely incredible as he was by himself and he falls to the hands of Miro, of Cooper, who, by the way, were taken out from 45th in game number 1. Here for game 2, their fight they way all the way back into the top 10 and plenty of eliminations to boot for it, to show for it as well. Boyo and Peterbot making up for this time too. Finds Chimp here on the high ground, and this is all but their game to lose at this point as they have all of the momentum here in their favor.
Can't ever count out Aviv and Bugha, though. Aviv with that Frenzy Yado gonna make quick work of Scissor. Will manage to pick up the material, but at the expense of his white HP, at least the Flowberry Fizz will get Aviv back to full shield. Aviv and Bugha now just trying to tarp directly underneath Peterbot and Pollo. Behind Peterbot, though, he spots out Cooper, who's trying to play spoiler to the high ground. Minimal chop, but it's gonna be Peterbot, Pollo challenging Bugha, Aviv. Aviv knocked inside of the bush. Peterbot, Pollo, they know it's just them versus Bugha. Bugha can't make it happen this time. Peterbot, Pollo finding the victory royale here in match number 2.
It's almost like Peterbot had X-ray vision. He just pre-fires the bush. He says, you know what, Bugha? There's only so many places
X-ray
you can
vision,
be. He
you
does
say?
not miss finding the wonderful tag there to
across 2 days rather. But in first place, Muzz and Paper 135 points. Whoa. And suddenly Acorn and Cole jumping up, and then look at this top 5. I'm just
Can't get over how derpy he looks, man. I don't know. It's just like
in with more of a contested early game. So last game, early on, Miro and Cooper were highly contested, but they finished the threat quickly. It wasn't the same for game number 1. Boyo and Peterbot too have a bit of resistance here at their draw spot. So you can tell, although they're having a great tournament run so far, it's not completely free, right?
Not completely free, but nothing ever is. Cooper and Miro, on the other hand, trying to make quick work of Sanito and Veer. We saw just how rapidly Cooper was able to end the run here for Sanito and Veer in match number 2. Now Cooper next to Miro. They're just going to keep breaking on down. They want the immediate challenge up against the likes of Veer and Sanito.
why isn't there a
But they also
door?
want to make sure they're getting proper materials online as well. Sanito and Veer are actually going to recognize the fact they were just beat to the punch. The drop just not good enough, and rather than find themselves elimed at the hands
Why
of
wasn't
Cooper,
there a door?
they're just going to opt to launch pad away instead. One of the benefits here at the Marigold. But as far as that reference
Yo, what's
towards
up?
a pro's adaptability, what I mean by that, MDF, is when you think about how recently these new surge thresholds were actually implemented, and just seeing how quickly these pros are making sure to adapt towards that. It is no easy means, as is, playing at a grand set lobby, trying to get your surge damage online. So when the stakes are raised even higher, and things are much more aggressive at the start here, it's just impressive stuff to see.
Yeah, and you know, it couldn't be more clear. We've seen so many instances already in game 1 and game 2 that really showcase the difference between your average, you know, casual,
There's 3
even
teams
ranked
on this
arena
one
game
house.
versus FNCS finalists, and the way they maneuver, the way they, you know, play the map and position themselves on the outskirts. That last game, number 2, had so many teams early on what arguably would be a dead side, you know, playerless zone, an area, but not in a FNCS Grand Finals lobby. There's going to be players every single which way you go. There's going to be players that are trying to, you know, play a type of strategy that likely will mirror your own, and we're going to see that time and time again. Right here is a great example of teams that are looking to fight on the outskirts. There are 3 currently battling, and there's 1 looking inwards, deciding of whether or not they want to even push in. And it seems like that team's on the move here. And then to the north, a solo might be looking to engage into this battle here shortly as well. It's not looking good for Maxo. He gets finished off here to Pars and Baka. But there's threats everywhere.
This is big, though, for Pars and Baka. Over here on the far west side of the map, they've been encountering quite a lot of sticky situations, and not every single one of them necessarily going their way. This match, though, Pars and Baka at least off to a pretty hot start there with those 2 eliminations. Vir and Sanita found themselves, they left Cooper and Miro alone just to run into Kanata and Agers instead. Pick your poison sort of ordeal here if you are Sanito and Vir, but they're hoping to turn this one in their favor. Kanata and Agers, though, well aware of the fact that they've got a little bit of competition here at their drop. But for Vir and Sanito, having been forced off of the Marigold, now into an area where, sure, you've got familiarity with the map, but that doesn't necessarily mean you know it as well as Kanata and Agers probably do, since it's where they've been dropping all season long. And things only continue to pick up here as Sigma, no Vorteca at the Classy Courts. He's just trying to escape.
Just trying to survive right now. That's what the name of the game is going to be here for teams that have had a struggle to game 1 and game 2. And like we continue to mention, day 1 is, of course, important to setting up your foundation for becoming the champion of the first FNCS, you know, of the year. However, day 2 is so much more important to perform even better or just as good, because the points are worth 1.5 times as much. It's almost like not necessarily a comeback mechanic, but a true mechanic to solidify the momentum if you can keep it. Looking at the standings here, Peterbot and Boyer are leading here in 6th so far. All in all, one of the first teams to crack that triple-digit point. And Cam and Aminish, another team that we haven't covered too much of or really have spoke about their strategy, have seemingly found themselves in a very consistent flow so far.
Yeah, Cam and Aminish just waiting things out for these Legion Tower grunts to spawn in so they can look to try and secure that forecast key card. But for Peterbot and Pollo, I saw Baka and Pars off in the horizon. Would almost expect that it's because of the fact Baka and Pars very likely going to challenge Peterbot and Pollo for the forecast tower that spawns a little bit east of Reclaim Villa. We'll have to wait and see, though, whether that hunch holds up, because Ritual and Reed, on the other hand, they've got the forecast tower completely wide open. No one looking to challenge. Ritual and Reed just having a fully established base at this forecast tower. And gotta be excited to see what they're planning on doing. Having the zone knowledge for the duration of match number 3.
You have to think about it. If they have it this easy, right? Like securing this forecast tower day 1, will teams review and come back to that day 2 and try to potentially take their hand at Reet and Ritual, or will they just allow them to quite possibly walk away with a free FNCS Grand Finals? And I say free because they have such an advantage knowing where every single next zone will go. It kind of reminds me back when Byla won his FNCS Grand, you know, his finals championship, essentially. They had center map. They were so positioned. He and Peterbot just ran away with the most advantageous position on the map, and it clearly showed in their playstyle how they were able to take advantage of it. That is how strong having a forecast tower can determine your tournament run. So if teams don't adjust and they allow Reet and Ritual to, you know, patch up the mistakes they made in game one, they're going to start to take away a pretty monstrous lead. It's going to be hard to close that gap.
I'm right there with you. Everything, as far as day one is concerned, you can never really get too comfortable with your game plan, with your Storm Surge strategy, because again, like you just touched on, Monster, very strong likelihood that some teams are going to review and again look to adapt towards those day two challenges, or at least try and pose more of a challenge to some players that might have had a little bit more of a luxurious stroll here in our first day of competition. But this is the halfway point.
I'm curious right now if Epic Whale and Clix have an idea if there's a team there. I see Clix looking outwards to the edge, but there's a lot of movement happening there, not only in the distance, but just in front of them. Oh, once again, this Quanti is in their sights here. They just don't get enough of them. It just seems like their rotates, their pathways just seem to continue to connect. So a little repeat of game two happening here in game three, but a completely different area of the map. Jumping on over to Reet and Ritual, a team that knows that they have to fight here. Have Jiven cornered out right now, and Reet has opponent right above him, which is of course Jiven's teammate.
Yeah, Piggle and Jiven looking to give Ritual and Reet a run for their money, but already highlighted a little bit earlier on today, Piggle definitely the fragger between these two as far as those semi-stats are concerned. But Piggle and Jiven maybe bit off a little bit more than they could chew. It is still Reet and Ritual that are bearing down upon the likes of Jiven and Piggle. Decent shot though, traded out here as Reet down to 62 shields. He's gonna look to get a little bit of height overhead, but oddly enough, Reet Ritual actually gonna opt to fall back momentarily. Probably scouting out the fact that at the bottom of this hill, there's another duo that could potentially be looking to try and pose a threat. Don't want to get caught up in a third-party situation.
Funny enough, I was just talking to Destiny's Jesus about how I continue to butcher my boy Jiven's name, but I've been doing it for years now. So I apologize.
It's tradition.
It's just tradition at this point. Everyone knows the NBF special. But look at this cluster of Paper and Muzz here. They're next to all the other top 10s, and then Clix and Epic Whale right now are finding themselves in what will be the most, you know, critical battle for them to finish up, and they do get X-Pawn. I was just gonna say, this is for Surge, this is for positioning, this is for getting themselves comfortable in the game, and you can tell that they really chose this battle wisely. Another time where they single out an individual and just full send on the singular player. They could have jumped on Quanti just a little bit ago. We just hinted at that. However, they decided not to fight Quanti and his duo and instead go for a more advantageous fight, and they find exactly just that. Epic Whale and Clix are honestly playing like an extremely top tier duo. This is very exciting to watch them continue to develop and catch their moments like this.
What's even more impressive though about what Clix and Epic are accomplishing here today is you have to factor in this was a duo that didn't even get to practice the new Surge thresholds, because you have to remember when it was first optioned for a method of practice, it was in the Duo Cash Cup, right? Clix and Epic, they didn't qual for that. And yet, still here today, they are showcasing that they were still able to develop a strategy aside from that being a problem, because so many players would love to get a little bit of set lobby practice. Even if it's not the grand set lobby, it's still set lobby practice, especially for such a massive change like the Surge thresholds having been impacted. So Clix and Epic, they've clearly got something figured out here, and it's working for them. We're just gonna have to hope that this isn't a caster's curse building in the process.
Well, so do Cooper and Miro here. They've jumped up roughly 45 spots from game 1 to game 2, putting themselves right up at the top of the totem pole here. They're in 8th here on the tournament standing so far as we start leaning into game 3, and it's exciting to see them actually catch their footing. And same thing for Day and Redux, who were some of the first teams eliminated game 1 and game 2, and now they're actually starting to make their way into a mid-game. You can never really count Day out. Can't forget he's had so many extreme moments of greatness. Redux is a competitor who's been around for a very long time. Slowly has been working his way up into the top tier echelon of teammates and playing with better and better duos season after season. This is his time to prove something big. They can't allow themselves to get pushed over the way they did in the upper and lower brackets. They have to continue to truly turn up.
Day and Redux. A little bit of problem here posed by Higher and Raze. The longer this engagement takes, the easier it's going to be for another team to potentially play spoiler alert to both of these duos. Day and Redux likely well aware of the fact that they're probably drawing in more company. They want to see if they can acquire just a little bit more damage, just a knock or an elimination. Get some material refresh. They came here, were able to secure a cache, but now they're going to be one of the first teams to disengage as Day, Redux, even if they weren't able to find the damage that they'd necessarily been after, at the same time, they don't want to risk finding themselves eliminated or getting caught up, pincered between several of those teams.
Yeah, you can't just keep throwing away games like that when you have a pretty bad game 1, game 2. You're game 3, you're alive this long. You just got to do what you got to do to stay alive a little bit longer, see if something better comes your way. And for them, I mean, 2 a.m. Golden was there. Tahi just showed up. It was all types of bad. I don't blame them for rotating out. I think it's the wisest decision they could have made. Now on over to Rise and Yamza, though, who have continued to trend in the right direction here. Still continuing to find themselves here at the top of the standings. Something went terribly wrong in game number 2 as the Yamza was taken out very early, but Rise, man, talk about an incredible play even as a solo when we watched him dive into those boxes for refreshers on his own. I'm thinking that's a team that is going to be a serious contender for the top of the standings here if they continue to stay alive as a duo. Now on over to Duke and Threats, though. We're just looking for Surge here, fishing for something big.
I mean, you're talking about teams that had issues in the last match. Duke, certainly familiar with that sensation. Unfortunately enough, looking to try and 180 things here in the halfway point of today's matches. But Duke and Threats, they've got... It's decent elevation, sure, but at the same time, there doesn't really seem like anybody's actually coming near them. They're likely going to have to leave that position sometime soon, because if they're under as far as their surge threshold is concerned, if you can't find anybody, if you can't see anybody, chances are even the people that are near you, they're probably not peeking. So Duke of Threats likely going to have to just be forcibly aggressive soon enough here. Peterbot pokes his head out for 1 second. Have to assume that it was just a sniper shot that he ate, given the damage applied. That 110 does not feel good.
I just saw a huge elimination too happen in the feed where Ritual seemingly took on Cam. Don't forget, Cam and Aminish, sleeper duo, was sitting at the pretty highly, pretty respectably on the standing after those first 2 games. So to get a little update there shortly, but Cold and Acorn right now have Edgy and Tavern here just next door. So much history between Acorn, Edgy, and all the other teams that have accolades on the West, but nothing's gonna turn out from this here. Hold up, little engagement here.
Nada and Agers though. It's gonna be Veer coming out on top for that one. But again, as things start to pick up, some of these teams rotating north, Reckless Railways can recognize the fact there's going to be a little bit of congestion one more time, building up towards that south side. All these teams looking to escape Reckless Railways, potentially getting held up even by some of these players here on top of the Rift Island. Could be looking to take some shots downwards. Peterbot Pollo, they're actually below as far as their damage threshold is concerned. Probably won't be long here. That's why we see it's not desperation necessarily when it's Peterbot. He's always this aggressive, but he will get punished for it. When you go for those super direct challenges, it's not always a guarantee that you're going to come out on top here.
We just love to see, you know, the history clash head to head here. Pollo, Peterbot, and then on the other side, Baila is the team that's contesting in here alongside Quanti. All of these teams, not only once in previous, of course, ex-teammates, but now on the other side of the fence going head to head, toe to toe. And just on the other side, you have Cooper and Miro listening to everything that's going down right now. What a dangerous Rift Island if we've ever seen one. And Peterbot and Pollo, little do they know, have their work cut out for them. They stick around here a little too long, and it's Miro and Cooper end up getting a fair share of the defense here from Pollo so far. But the zone's revealed itself. They're definitely going to have to roll out of here shortly. It just seems like they don't want to be the first to go.
The other problem, though, for Peterbot and Pollo looking kind of scarce there as far as his materials were concerned. Cold, getting pieced up, just using that grapple blade. Didn't get a chance to actually check the bush. And unfortunately, Cold inside of the box. Edgy Tavern from the bush to the box. It's kind of insane when you think of how fast they were able to break into Cold's box there.
And it just doesn't stop. It's like they just had a small exchange against Edgy just moments ago, and they grapple bladed away. They just went off into the distance. Acorn and Cold had no idea they'd be lurking this far away in a completely different bush. It could have been any team that decided to rotate this way. And it's just unlucky now for Acorn, who's also below the surge, by the way. So this is going to be one of his only moments right here. One of the most critical times here to find some tags, while you have teams like Piggle here, like Jiven, who have wooden structures in front of them. Yeah, you just have to take these fights. It's just not going to get any easier than this. Not that this is an easy fight by any means for a solo to take on a set of professional players, but he does have something to look forward to, a slight advantage nonetheless there.
No.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. The tags creep through the builds.
The only thing Acorn's really got going for him is the fact that Jagvir definitely sandwiched next to his teammate LeBron between a solo in Acorn and a duo in Piggle and Jiven. But at least for right now, LeBron and Jagvir, they don't want to look to immediately challenge, and it's honestly kind of odd that a duo is this unwilling, this hesitant to try and engage with a solo. Hard pressed to believe that Acorn wasn't identified as a solo at least, but still, the damage that he applied was intimidating enough.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. You have to think about they were in wood builds too, right? And in a very vulnerable position. So it's just showing you the lack of experience sometimes in these big lobbies. So look at this. Fully experienced Epic Whale jumps in and finds himself 2 for his troubles. 1 onto Pollo there and another in the low grab. Pollo and Peterbot cleaned up, wrapped up, and talking about experienced professional players. Acorn with the turn and burn here, with all the pressure of the lobby on his back, continuing to press on to the neck here of Golden here. The pressure too hard to overcome right now. And just like that, he's still in the game here, earning points.
That was Booga. That Acorn is just 180 pumping to the face, by the way.
He only has one
sees
build.
Acorn distracted, tries to prey upon him, instead gets his face ripped off for it. That is an absurdly insane shot there from Acorn. And the fact that he came out on top and is able to extend the placement possibilities for Cold and himself. Absolutely insane stuff there.
We'll take a look at Epic Whale. We turn away, and he gets taken down there on the outskirts, but not before, of course, taking a bunch of players with him. At least it allows him to mitigate the blow to the standings that those implications are going to have for him falling a little too early here in this end game. However, Acorn is positioned on a pretty high spot here of this mountain, and it's going up and over This is a great overall spot to be in right now, as he's gonna have free opportunities to make the rotates, and also who is now likely his arch nemesis of the lobby, Edgy and Tavern, are sitting up top. And look at this, Bold in the open, Paper and Muzz just walking around in the snow here, fearlessly trying to conserve material. Big moves are gonna come out though. That's right.
It's crazy how quickly they're able to get up and over this mountain face. And will claim themselves
Hello?
a mid-ground position.
Who is this?
It's Gage, dude.
Oh, yo, what's up?
What's up?
I'm not playing anything right now. I didn't actually think anybody would join.
But take a dab rip. Shower at Nate's place.
Yeah, alright.
So it's fucking.
That's what's up.
In the morning, I haven't slept. So
Damn, bro.
it's, dude, it's insomnia. Bullshit.
Yeah, dude, I get it. I've had it before. But yeah.
Bro, shit ain't fixable. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I used to be on like every kind of sleep med you can think of. Nothing worked.
Yeah. That sucks, man.
Yeah, but now just smoke weed.
Yeah. That's basically the same as sleeping, right?
Exactly. Knock your ass out enough.
Yeah. Alright, man, I gotta finish something up, so I'll see you later.
But checking back in with Acorn, he does have a couple of small shield potions. Unfortunately, his position also being known there, just gets immediately ran down by Yuumi. A decently sized refresh there too, with that elimination onto Acorn. Sitting here now though with Iamzo and Rise, kind of just waiting to see if anybody's gonna actually potentially look to just like tarp over their current layer, that if they're able to pick somebody off from above, could give them grounds to keep moving forward. Paper and Muzz, we talked about how out in the open they were, but maybe a little bit too exposed here as Paper loses practically all of his HP for it.
And off the side of the mountain he goes. And I was just going to say, the team we need to be looking out for is Re and Ritual, as they know where the zone is going every single game. And I'm curious to see how well positioned they are. Take a look at it. They are extremely positioned with material. They just need more damage. And this is what I'm talking about. Re and Ritual can run away with the entire FNCS Grand Finals just off the knowledge alone. When a difficult terrain like this presents itself, what better thing than to understand other than where the zone is going next? And you can see how it's playing its way out in spades here, because not only that, they have practiced so very well. For Muzz, the difficult battle continues now as he loses Paper, but he's at the front side of zone here. He actually finds elimination as he looks back there, and he is cooking right now here, getting very comfortable. And actually, someone might have taken the credit for that one, but still, nonetheless, placement points are really starting to rack up here. A top 15 presents itself. The other side of Iamzo, all the way down to the low ground, switches to the hard material, loses teammate on the landing, and now he's gonna have to fight for it.
The problem that Iamzo and Rise just encountered is the fact that when you're using that grapple blade to try and tackle that frontside low, especially in a zone that's moving towards that downside of the elevation, it is just so difficult not to draw the whole attention of the lobby. We've got Byla sitting up way up above everybody else here, but Byla gotta have some Flowberry Fizz or a grapple blade, because it's only a matter of time before he gets chopped there. Have to expect at least from the veteran experience inside of this lobby. Muzz just trying to sneak his way through these low ground builds. Ritual now gonna spot out There is, in fact, a solo way up above everybody else, but
They know. I think
It's the
he knows.
chop.
Yes, he does. He recognizes Quanti was up there. You are not safe. And they end up popping a couple of shots here. But again, they have the knowledge of where the zone's going to go. Look at how they get to the next security position here, right up above. And it's cost them a lot of material, but it is worth it as they turn and just destroy players round after round here. And Iamzo takes advantage of all the chaos. He's scaling up the side of these builds. He doesn't have any mats to work with. He doesn't care though. He's just trying to get up and over, and he's just gonna have to fight his way through. He finds Noxie, but there's not enough time for him to pick up the med kit. Meanwhile, Threat's playing for the heal off. And one thing to note, Taco, all of these games have truly gone the distance. There have been just battle after battle. It really hasn't even looked like heal offs were a potential by any means, but this game right here, I think the story's the same. I think it's going to go all the way to the end, and it's going to come down to who can hit their shots.
everybody down to their last build. Batman Booga doesn't even have any left. The elimination, siphon materials out of threats, though. Will be a little bit of time, and Baka, no chance. Batman Booga finding the elimination there at the end.
And that's what happened. We just talked about. If a heal off was even possible, it does not look like it. Even Batman Booga in that moment was like, dude, I need shields. Like, we have to fight for this. And he had 2 medkits. He could have possibly even won the game just with those heals, but it is not going to be enough. This time, everything turns upside his head, but information is king. Take a look at Re and Ritual. The dominant positioning from the high ground. They turn this entire spot around here, and they, again, not only have the information, but they execute so well in finding the eliminations too.
And look, for Re and Ritual, you know that they've got full control of that forecast hour. At least we know that much. But the fact that they were able to just overtake the high ground and just watch as the ants underneath them essentially destroy themselves. It was a good attempt.
This dominance, they will not.
All right, chat. Damn, Muzz and Paper just staying in first place. I see how it is. So let me think about this. I'm ending stream, and I'm gonna go to work. I get off at 2. Do I do an early workout and then stream all the way till 7? Or do I start streaming at 3? No. Yeah, I should definitely do an early workout. Yeah, that makes more sense. So Saturdays, early workout. Okay. Okay. Cool. Alright guys, I'll see you later.